All right, back for another episode. Fred, you ready for this?
Let's hit it. Been looking forward to this one.
You know, this guy, he is very difficult to schedule because he is so famous and powerful and successful. That,
exactly, that's why.
Listen, he's a moving target, man, and you better be careful because next thing you know, you're getting armbarred. You don't even know it.
Armbarred with there's 2 finger wraps.
Oh, yeah, I broke both of them.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, taking down bigger guys than you is always dangerous.
Yeah, but when you are unofficially the deadliest family in McKinney.
Yep, we are.
Deadliest family in McKinney.
Because all 7 of us do jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
And we started during COVID.
Yeah.
So we've been doing it for 4.5 years.
And his one son, Dallin, is just plain old wrestling enabled. So,
well, I feel like you should do the bio then.
I'm just going to make stuff up.
Yeah. That's the most fun bio. So here we go. And welcome our guest.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, in this corner, weighing in at
175 pounds?
No.
Oh, yeah, not
220 probably.
220. But it's lean, mean, fighting machine. Whether he is on the mat or he is
in the
courtroom or simply using the power of the pen on that contract, you do not want to be on the other side of the negotiation.
Taylor.
They call me the Willinghammer. That's
the Willinghammer.
So what is that one guy? One guy in town who's the
Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer?
Oh yeah, that's kind of how it got.
Oh man.
So one guy wanted me to start a cartoon, and it was going to be the Willinghammer Hammer Head because sharks.
That's right. Hey, we got to remember the final question.
Yeah,
since he's talking hammerheads here.
Yeah.
So,
have you heard any of these episodes? Do you know what's about to happen?
Yeah, I've seen your guys' shows before.
Okay, cool.
Right. So he knows
what the final question is.
He does his research.
Yeah,
that's part of this thing.
We didn't get any questions to submit documents for discovery though.
That's right.
So,
that's good. That's probably going to save me. So
there you go. Yeah,
because then he'd have to charge us.
So Taylor, I'm gonna start with the easy stuff. How in the world did you find your way to McKinney? Talk about the backstory. We're gonna get into the law stuff, and then we'll finish with the election stuff.
Okay.
And figure out why my phone is on Do Not Disturb. Why is it doing this? No, sorry. That is the second episode in a row my phone has bothered us while we're recording. Okay. So the Taylor Willingham story. Where does it start? Fred, what's your question? When your feet first
touched the earth, was it Texas soil? And if it wasn't, what's your excuse?
It was here in Texas. I was born in Brazosport, Texas.
Okay.
And but then my dad was a special ed teacher, and so he wasn't very happy about the idea that he didn't get his Social Security also with his teacher pension. So we went up to Utah, and then wasn't a very good time, and my parents split up, and we got foreclosed on, so we were homeless, and we moved back here to Texas for a while.
Wow.
And then my dad was able to get himself back on his feet, took us 4 kids back up to Utah, and then he kind of got things under control, and then when I was 19, I went on a Mormon mission and went to the Philippines and lived there.
Go Philippines.
Yeah, and love the Philippines.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite places in the world, and I went to the highlands of northern Luzon and lived up in the mountains for 2 years, and then came back and went to school and met my wife. We got married, went to Texas Tech Law School, and then at Texas Tech Law, that's where I was offered a job to come and start a law firm here in McKinney.
Very cool. So I got to ask, first and foremost, as a Utah boy, what's your favorite national park in Utah? Because you've got some really good options. Zion, Bryce Canyon. There's a half dozen of them in Utah. Big fan of national parks?
Yes, absolutely. Because I was an Eagle Scout because my dad was a Scoutmaster.
Oh, awesome.
So we went camping.
So you're all about it then.
Every weekend.
Being a scout in Utah, man, that's got to be a lot of fun.
It was fun. And then I when I first moved here, I was a Scoutmaster here in McKinney for a while. It's not fun here. It is hard to go camping here in the summertime.
Yeah.
It is just like, There, it's like you get in the tent, you get in the sleeping bag. It doesn't matter how cold it gets outside, you're good. And
Right.
so
Here it's like camping. Let's go to the Holiday Inn because it's triple digits and the sun has already gone down.
My son's been in Cub Scouts since kindergarten. I'm a den leader there. I'll be with him however long he's in Scouts. So that's really cool that you're an Eagle. And anytime I get to meet an Eagle, I always want to just pick their brain on stuff.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite national park in Utah?
So I love Zions. I love Arches, and probably one of my favorite places because I had so many good memories is a place called Goblin Valley. We went camping out there all the time. It's just if you go on that southeast side of Utah where there's nobody there, with just crazy formations and everything, you could go forever. And sometimes we would go up into the mountains, and I swear no one's ever been there, and you'd find, drawings all over the rocks from Native Americans, and you're just like, this is the coolest place.
Wow.
Felt like you're always on some great exploration when you're.
That's awesome.
Is the sky all that at night out there?
Oh yeah, when you're out there, you can see forever, and it's just like
Very cool.
It is a great place to be a scout in that state.
So did you go to Brigham Young or somewhere else?
No, I went to Utah State University.
Utah State. Okay, cool. And how did you pick law? Of all the things that you could do, what was it about the law that made you choose that for a career?
Really, what really got me going into it was the reality. I wanted to be a school teacher, and then I also wanted to have a family, and I wanted my wife to be able to stay home. And I was like, hey, this isn't going to work on a school teacher salary. There's no way I'm going to be able to have a big family. So I said, okay, fine. I'm going to go and figure out what advanced degree can I get into? Well, math wasn't necessarily my biggest suit, so but I did really well, and so I took the LSAT, did really well in the LSAT. So I was like, okay. And then the weird thing is, I took an aptitude test, and it's like, oh, you should be a doctor, and I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. So I went to law school, and then had a midlife crisis, and in the first semester of law school, it was like, what am I doing? This is not what I thought it was going to be.
But you persevered.
I made it through it. Yeah, it was my dad that got me through that because I called him and said, I don't think this is for me. And he said, one thing you're not is a quitter. So
nobody likes a quitter.
Go one more semester. And he was right. Once I went one more semester, I got into the groove.
So for those not familiar with the law in our audience, there's basically two huge camps of the law. There's the paper pusher attorneys, and there's the litigation attorneys. And obviously there's 5 or 6 main specialties in each one of those: family, personal injury, business, contract, and all that stuff, corporate and whatnot. How did you decide what flavor of attorney you wanted to be?
So it was really more pushed on me how I was going to do things. So when I got here, so 2 weeks before I took the bar, I got a call because it was 2009. And they said, hey, we don't have a job for you. But we already had an apartment here in McKinney.
Wow.
So we just said, well, we don't really have any other choice. We got to move somewhere in Texas. So we moved here, and I got a job making $10 an hour down in Dallas, working for a law firm. So
you should have been a teacher at that point.
Exactly. I was like, what am I doing? Like,
so you have a law degree making $10 an hour.
Yeah, that was my first job, and I was just like, you know what? I think I can make more on my own.
Wow.
So I opened an office. It was the Synergy Bank building at the time, way over there on Custer, and just opened up my office and just started to get to know people. But then it was the only thing I wanted to do estate planning because that's what I was coming here to do, was estate planning work. But I ended up doing what was necessary at the time, which was mainly foreclosure defense work and criminal defense work. Which criminal defense I enjoyed probably the most doing when I was doing it, because you're just working with usually young men with drug problems and trying to help them through it, but it doesn't pay when you're on the wheel. It's not much. You have to do the bigger stuff, felony defense, that kind of stuff, and I wasn't interested in doing that type of work.
Okay, so because I've known you for a while, how did Chicago Title? Right?
Yeah. So it was Chicago Title. We were a fee office for Chicago Title.
Okay. So I was like, Chicago Title and criminal defense, they don't necessarily go together.
Yeah. So what ended up happening when I was doing foreclosure defense, I was suing title companies every once in a while, and for some reason, Chicago kept coming up that I was involved with lawsuits with them, and then one of their head execs was like, "Are you liking suing the title company?" I'm like, "No, it's not very fun," because you're representing people who are getting foreclosed on. They usually don't have money, so it's hard for them to pay your bill. And so they offered me a fee office if we kind of make a peace treaty, and so I got a fee office, and I stopped.
It sounds smart for them. Taylor, would you please stop suing us?
That's right.
Can you work?
Wait, though.
Can you work over here?
Yeah.
Are we saying that you were open for graft and corruption?
Yeah.
That you got bought off?
Exactly. In that situation, it was when you realize that
Don't put it like that, man. Come on now.
when you're in that situation where you're always losing because the law's on their side, and in all honesty, like when you stop paying your mortgage, it's pretty much your fault. So
Well, sure.
As a fellow business owner, I mean, all three of us are business owners. We understand the importance of having your customers be able to pay the invoice. So I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah. So
you got to make money for your family.
Yeah, it was at the end of the day, and it was I was trying to help people out in the situation and everything, but when you get into it and you realize there's no way that you're going to really get around these banks and title companies with all the things that are put up. Now there were some good cases that we had, but most of it was me getting involved in a case and then someone not paying their bill and me working on their case. So.
And then you're an unintentional pro bono attorney.
Exactly. And
pro bono by the client.
Involuntary pro bono.
Oh my
Exactly.
goodness. So they can't afford to make their house payment, and then they come to you and say, "I need an attorney," and you're like, "My fee is," knowing that they don't have the money.
Well, when you're desperate, you're desperate.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I was living off credit cards then. So it was.
Oh, testify.
Yeah.
Class of 2011 on
So
that.
how did things turn for the better in your career? Because now, successful law practice, family's doing great. You turned the corner somehow. What was it that was the beginning of the next chapter of your life?
Consistency. You stay the course, you keep working, you keep doing, and you start figuring things out. But it was about 2.5 years in when finally I felt like every payroll that was going to come around, I wasn't about to face bankruptcy.
Gotcha.
It's like so as we came around that corner, I got there's a really big case that I got that really just turned things around for us financially. And then we were able to really move forward after that. But the thing is, with business, it's really, you can be almost the worst business person in the world, but if you show up every day and apply yourself, you can turn things around.
Yeah. And I just want to say, because, I still remember your office over in it's now the Caddo.
Yes.
And that was one of the first times that I physically had to move furniture in order to be able to shoot, you and Charlie,
Yes.
That headshot. And I remember thinking, I'm a small business owner, and this is a small business owner, except he has an office, but it was so tight in there, but you still got it done. And now I look at where you are, I haven't been in your new office, but, so to someone who's looking at, something in the law or litigation field, you've already shared, man, there's some struggles, obviously, but what would you say to, up and coming attorneys?
Yeah. Well, my son wants to go into law school, and I've tried to convince him, like, it's going to be great knowledge-wise, understanding things, but the reality is AI in the future will be able to do transactional work. And so it's like, unless you want to be a litigator, then I would say law is probably not the route to go, because paperwork is what AI can do. It's the reality.
You literally have a human check the work of the AI, and then they sign off on it, and then it moves on.
Yeah, but in theory, because I saw a news clip the other day where someone was, they're actively in a defense, and he used AI to generate his counsel.
Yeah.
Do you see that as becoming a viable alternative to a physical person? Because, your job involves a lot of research and presenting the facts. when James and I, well, actually James more than I'm asking it things like, what's the oil change interval for my car? James is actually asking like legit questions at ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You know,
dude, we use it every single day.
Oh yeah.
Do you see that there's a potential threat on what you do?
Oh yeah.
There's no potential. It's a threat.
Yeah.
It's here, the Terminator.
Oh yeah.
I'm convinced
Esquire.
that the lowest, about half of all of legal work in 4 years will be done by AI for people. Because like I was talking to an individual at one of our campaign rally things, and he lost his business. He owed a bunch of money to people, and he went to an attorney and he said, well, to settle all these disputes, I'm gonna have to charge you $30,000. Well, he didn't have any money. He just lost his business. And he goes, I just put it into ChatGPT, and just every time I'd get something from their attorney, I put it in and said, respond. And he goes, I settle it all out myself. And, and so it's like, law is one of those areas where AI is going to be very good because there is a lot of written material.
Case law, precedent, and all that.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is these large language models, they get better over time. They're constantly absorbing information and receiving instruction and parameters and filters from the person sitting at the keyboard. And I mean, if you just look at the last 2 years, Fred, I mean, ChatGPT was 2.5 was the model 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago now. And just the evolution in the last 2 years of what it's able to do with images, it can render video on its own. Like as we record this about 2 weeks ago, it gained the ability to draw from all of your previous conversations. Up until about 2 weeks ago, if you have a conversation with ChatGPT a month ago, and you come back to it again and want to talk about the same subject, it doesn't remember the previous conversation, but now it does. So you can have a conversation referencing a previous conversation, and it's learning from the full body of your conversation in totality. Different subject over here, different subject over there. You ask it to generate a document here, whatnot. Like, I would imagine folks in your industry, Taylor, are scrambling, trying to figure out how in the world do I stay in business? And more importantly, how can I leverage this technology to become way more efficient, be faster, to streamline expenses? And it's not popular to say this, and I know you as a mayoral candidate totally appreciate what I'm about to say here. Replace human jobs with technology that doesn't take breaks, doesn't go to the bathroom, doesn't get hungry, never has a bad attitude, doesn't take vacations. Your generative AI platform, your large language models, especially as an attorney, it's always sitting there, ready to receive instruction, ready to kick out a document, ready to review a contract and contrast them against each other. Hey, review these two documents. Tell me the differences between them.
Yeah.
How do we address this as people that lead businesses, that hire folks, that are responsible for families' well-beings and whatnot?
That is going to be the major challenge. That's actually the reason I got into the mayor race, was because half of all white-collar jobs are supposed to be gone in the next 4 years. And that was the thing that I was
like, 4 years?
Within the next 4 years, that's what the thing, because the projection is right now, you're seeing that happen in two main. One is it's starting in law. It is starting to take the jobs of lawyers. But software programmers is where the big area where they're seeing the biggest decline in job offers that are out there. But yes, no, that's the projection right now. And it's growing faster than what they were projecting a year ago.
Yeah.
Their breakthroughs that they're having.
Because it's a parabolic innovation curve. It's not a linear curve.
And it's hard for our minds to grasp it. Like, it's every time I get on, like this morning, I was working on something and I'm like, I'm going to just, I don't know if you guys know what Cursor AI is, but it'll build web page, it'll program for you. So I just went to Cursor and have it build me a Chrome extension, and it did it in 10 minutes. Yeah. And it implemented it for me, did all the stuff. I'm not a programmer, and I was just blown away about how quick it can do things. And it still has a ways to go before it will be really efficient, but it is scary because there will be a transformation that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it also is the greatest opportunity.
Yep.
And every business owner that's out there, if you're willing to change and you're willing to look at things differently, and employees do, this is a tool that you can use to amplify your abilities significantly. And so, but one big thing that the city is going to have to understand is it's going to have to get ahead of it, because it will. Every city in America is going to have to. You're going to have to help people make that transition.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be retraining people, just like anything. It's just nothing. No other tool in human history has been like this, and it's really going to be hard for all of us to make that mental shift.
It's like when the internet started to become mainstream 25 years ago.
Yeah.
28, 29 years ago. When let's call it 30 years ago, 1995. You started to move away from bulletin boards and private servers, and where the internet moved out of DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Administration, and it became something that the general public had. Yeah. And the internet changed everything. It took about a decade, but it completely changed the way that humans exist. Large language model, generative AI platforms is exactly the same level of disruptor, I think.
But much faster.
It's going to happen a lot faster.
Yeah.
And exponentially faster as time goes on.
Dude, something as simple, and we're not just going to talk about AI the whole time. For you audience folks out there, who's like, what is happening? This is supposed to be an interview with Taylor. I want to hear about law and mayoral candidates. It was like,
we're going to respell your name. TAI.
Yeah, there we go.
TAILOR. Taylor. No, Heather on my team was struggling, and she spent close to an hour taking a large vehicle schedule from a new client. That they're a property manager and they have like 40 or 50 vehicles. We were taking that from a PDF that she hadn't run optical character recognition, OCR, through that. She hadn't done some things that I know how to do, but I just hadn't told her exactly how to do it. And she messages me and was like, hey, I'm just going to be another hour or two until I get this done. I was like, oh, Heather, please don't tell me you're doing that manually. And she's like, yeah, I've been literally just copy and pasting data fields. I was like, oh, no. Feed that into ChatGPT, feed our template, our Excel spreadsheet into ChatGPT, and tell ChatGPT to take this vehicle data and put it in that spreadsheet and read the headers for the data, for the columns and rows and everything. And she's like, oh, you can do that? I was like, yeah, there's a lot you can. I have failed you. You didn't know that this was. And literally like 3 minutes later, she messages me, was like, it's done and it's all perfect. Holy crap, man.
Yeah.
It was like a perfect example of just a routine run-of-the-mill managing data, nothing special, but that one thing saved a member of my team probably 2 hours of labor, which means that me as a business owner, I just saved 2 hours of labor cost.
Yes, and tedious labor. I mean, that's the stuff that just...
brain-sucking, soul-crushing labor.
Exactly. And we had the exact same scenario. It was government forms that had to be filled out and data that had to be entered in. And I was like, just take that and put both documents in there and it will do it for you. And it did it. And this form usually took days to get done.
Now, the biggest concern, and this is something that I didn't have a problem with for this particular task because vehicle data is public.
Yeah.
It's all there with DPS and registration and whatnot. So I didn't have any problem with that particular task. But privacy,
yes,
as it pertains to law, as it pertains to mayoral candidate stuff, like protecting individual citizens' right to privacy. That is my biggest concern when it comes to AI. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on that? How do we move forward in an AI-enabled future and protect people's privacy while empowering them to do cool things with AI? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so you have to be, like, if you're using like ChatGPT or any of those other models, you can't use the free version because they do take your data. That's how they make money. They take your data. And so you have to use the paid versions, and then you have to be aware, like in the law, we go to classes on this all the time. Like, what versions can you use that don't take your client data and put it back out there that will, not recirculate it? So you have to be aware of those type of things and those kind of private, because data, those models want to use your data. I mean, that's what they want. And so if they're giving it to you for free, Nothing's free.
If it's free, you're the product.
Yeah.
As the saying goes.
Exactly. And so you have to be aware of those type of things and kind of those situations. And then what can you put in there and what can you not put in there? And because we have certain situations, like if we're working on someone's case or something, we don't put their names or anything in it. We'd use here's the fact pattern. What do you think about this fact pattern? And then gives us ideas to look at things different ways. But yeah, you don't upload their personal information in there because you still don't know what really is going to be used for.
Yeah.
So paid is just, you're assuming that they're not taking your stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you always have to, as a lawyer, you just have to assume that they're taking it.
Free, they're definitely taking your stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So you've got a successful practice. Family's trucking along. How did the family side of things go? So you got 5 kids.
Yeah.
Which is, big families are very common in the Mormon faith, and it's encouraged and go forth and multiply and populate the earth and all of that. How did you and your wife have the family planning conversation in the middle of you working undoubtedly 80, 90-hour weeks, getting a fee office off the ground, and
$10 an hour,
paying for life?
Yeah.
How did all the family side of things go along to marry with the professional we just got finished talking about?
Yeah. So we had 2 kids before we even moved here to McKinney. And then
So you already had 2 kids when you were starting all this?
Yeah.
Working $10 an hour with 2 kids?
Oh yeah, it was hard.
Wow.
We were both used to it. We grew up poor. Both of us didn't have anything growing up. So
Yeah.
it was normal for us, like, oh, you just don't go out to eat. You don't,
Chef Boyardee.
I drove a car that the dashboard was peeling up, and the scouts used to call me the ghetto attorney because I drove the worst car. Every scout I had that had a car, they had a nicer car than I did. So it was kind of embarrassing, when you're
Yes.
when you're like doing that. But you know what? I'll give a shout. I moved here to McKinney. My car was so bad. One of the first people I met, he's one of my best friends. He gave me his car.
Wow.
Because he felt so bad for me. And that's the generosity of people, like, through the process. But people were very generous for helping us with different things and going through. But at the beginning, that was a big struggle. And figuring all that out and doing everything. But, it's slow. You chip away at things and things go, better and more right in the right direction. And eventually it turns around for you. But we kind of didn't know any different, I live in the Philippines, and
As a missionary.
So they gave me $100 a month to live off of, and so that's to cover all my transport.
100 US dollars or 100 pesos?
U.S. dollars.
Oh, okay. So that's a lot of balut.
Yeah, but it was hard to get through a month when it's all your transportation, and everything. So you learn.
So how do you get extra money? You just depending on the generosity of the people around you?
Yeah, we got robbed my first 3 months. Each month, someone was sneaking into our house and stealing our money, and we didn't really have a way to communicate. We just would walk around, and hopefully people fed us. That was really what we did. And the Philippines, that's how people are. Like, come on in, and they'd get us snacks. They just didn't know that's how we were living. Mm-hmm. Like, we made it through those 3 months that way, but that was really frustrating because I just get there, and then you're like, what's going on? I have no real way to communicate with my family because we didn't have phones or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or we weren't supposed to use that. At that time, you weren't allowed to email. So you had to write letters, and it took like 3 weeks to get there and 3 weeks to get back.
Wow.
So but I made it through it. I wrote a whole book about it. It was crazy. Like,
Well, drop the title of that book. Come on now. Let's shameless plug here.
Itui. That's what it's called. ITUY. That's the original name of the area that when the Spanish first arrived, that's what they called the area that I spent most of my time at.
Itui.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions for our friend here before we kick off the campaign side of things?
I do have questions, but they're campaign related. So let's just jump right into the meat. We've already tapped deeply into the Taylor thing. So prior to this run for the mayor, what is your political experience, and why did you decide to run?
Yeah, so I'm not really a politically active or motivated person. Like, I just don't get involved in politics at all. That's kind of always been.
But you do vote.
Yeah, I vote, but I've no.
You
but
got jokes, huh, Fred?
I got jokes.
Okay.
Yeah, but like on the side, I haven't been consistent in voting in the local elections, which is a fault of mine. But which is the oddest thing because your local elections is what matters, not the national ones.
It does. It matters a lot.
And so I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand why my mind just never flips to that kind of concept. But I showed up to every national election. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. Let's camp out there for just a second because that is of all the nobody really dislikes you. Like you're a very likable guy. You're warm and friendly and personable and obviously experienced and successful businessman, good husband, good dad. There's a lot of positives about Taylor Willingham. The thing that I found curious when I heard that I didn't know you at all a few months ago. I had no reason to come across your business or whatever. But what I heard from people as I asked around was like, what's the story with this Taylor Willingham guy? Like, I don't know anything about this guy. I was like, oh yeah, he's running for mayor. It was like, has he ever done anything before? Has he ever run for anything? Has he ever served anywhere? Is it like nonprofit boards? Like, how is he involved around town? They're like, well, he's not really involved. Okay, well, what should I know about it? I was like, well, he didn't vote in local elections. Like, he didn't vote for local elections, but now he's running for a local election. I had a hard time conceptually getting around that of why should we take Taylor seriously as a mayoral candidate if even he himself didn't vote in local elections. What's your explanation there? How are you getting past that when you're talking to people, when this question comes up, when you're door knocking and at events and whatnot? Help me get past that. Let's put this thing to bed and move on to more substantial things.
Yeah. So I've never been asked the question. I think most people don't ask it because 90% of people...
They don't even realize that it's public record.
Well, yeah, it's public record, but 90% of people in McKinney don't vote in the local election.
Which is a huge problem.
Yeah, and that is
huge problem.
So people are kind of like, I totally understand. Like, I can't tell you how many people are like telling me like right now, it's like, well, in November I'll vote for you. And I'm like, oh no, it's May 3rd. And it's like, and it's like, that's why our signs are all up right now. And one of the biggest issues, of course, is the fact that it's off of the normal election.
It's all by itself.
It's all by itself. And the other is really just like, for me, it's my focus is like, I'm not focusing on what's the real important thing when it comes to government. I'm focusing on this national elections where it really doesn't mean very much necessarily. Now you should vote in your national elections too, but really it's coming down to an understanding what's going on in McKinney. And so you end up going like, I would go about half the time, you know, it's like, oh, I'd come around and then I'd know people that are running. Like when I knew Rainey Rogers, so I went and voted when he was running. So I knew him. A lot of times I just didn't know people that were running. And so, but those are just excuses of not doing what you're supposed to do, which is pay attention to who's running and why they're running and what's going on. Yeah. And then I got more, of course, involved after Leadership McKinney, because then I felt like I understood. Yeah. Oh, this is what's going on in the city.
Which class?
2016.
Okay.
So.
Oh, he's old school.
Yeah. So that really opened my eyes to, this is what's going on here. This is the players of the game. I think also because when you move into a place, you're like, well, the people that are from here know better what's going on with the city. Yeah. And it's kind of this weird kind of situation that you're in. But the reality is it's just not taking personal responsibility for something you should be doing. Mm-hmm. And so many people like me in this city, we all do that. And then it became very obvious to me that it's like, this is far more moving forward, especially with what's happening at the federal level. Sure. Your local, especially your city, is going to be the most important form of government for you.
So why mayor? You go from outside of the political game entirely to going straight for the big seat in the middle of the dais. Not school board, not council, not getting involved in a board or a commission or something. Help me understand how you decide, you know what, I'm going to get involved, and I'm going to get involved in the biggest way possible. I'm going to run for mayor. Talk us through that process, that rationale there.
So what's about to happen is the biggest change in our society is going to happen over these next 4 years. When change happens, and we have big shifts like this, it's also the greatest opportunity. Yep. And so it was at that time realizing I think the guys who are running are great people, but I don't think they understand what's going on in the change environment.
From a technological advancement, from an innovation, from a workforce disruption perspective, if I'm reading your content correctly, that's where you feel the biggest gap is in their ability to lead?
Yeah, so you're not, I just don't, because when I talk to people, they just don't get what's going on. And that is one of the three major problems, which is the technology is going to change society. That's also our greatest opportunity. The other is the economics. People keep coming to me like, oh, well, the federal government will solve that problem. Or I go, if you're not paying attention, it's dying. The federal government is slowly washing away its abilities to be able to do anything in a significant level. Like it's kind of a weird thing. People go, oh, well, you're not politically involved. A lot of people don't know you. I probably know more people in McKinney than anybody else. 6,000 clients that I have are from McKinney because I meet 2 new people a day for the last 17 years that are either here, McKinney or Frisco. And I have the unique opportunity as I sit down and I plan out their lives. And so I get to know people really well. And so I know a lot of people in the city and their situation. And really what got me really scared was about 2 years ago when people started coming in and the problems were getting significant for individuals. And it really is inflation. The inflation in its elderly individuals that are really the most hurt. Of course, so many families are really struggling because inflation has devastated them too, but they have a capacity to earn more money.
Yeah.
Wages went up when inflation went up. Social Security, the cost of living adjustment, is not actually tied to actual inflation. It's one way the federal government's trying to save itself, is they're saying, oh, we're not cutting programs, but when you print more and then you don't increase social programs at the same rate, you're cutting the programs.
Yeah.
And so that's how they've decided how they're going to handle the situation.
Shrinkflation.
Yeah, there you go. And so when I started having people coming in and going, they couldn't even afford rent, and they're an elderly individual, then I realized, oh my gosh, this is really getting bad. And then trying to explain to people, they're like, well, the government's going to have to solve that problem.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, your cities are going to have to solve the problem because that's how it happened before when we went through the Great Depression.
Yeah.
It wasn't the federal government that came in and saved things.
Do you have any questions you want to add before we jump into some specific issues?
No, not really. I just want to agree with you that when someone says, I was listening to something this morning and they're saying, well, now, we're spending, $65 per person for this program. And I was like, but how much does that program cost now? Well, now it costs $75, so one will say, well, look what I'm doing. But in actuality, you're still further behind the 8 ball than you were before, which, kind of, I think, leads into the next thing more specifically. Now, I know that you have, said your stance on the airport, and we might as well get it out there. But without saying your stance, can you give us one reason why the airport needs to expand and one reason why it doesn't?
So the one reason why it needs to expand currently is because if contracts have been signed and we are moving forward something, if the airport fails, then McKinney taxpayers have to pay for it.
Yep.
And so that would be an economic disaster, like way worse than anything else currently at this point. So it's kind of this position that, people keep saying things like, well, we'll just stop it or pause it or whatever. The reality is if it's been put into motion, if you try to undo that, you're going to cause a significant financial harm to the taxpayers of McKinney because they have to cover it because that's what the contracts say and that's how it's been written up. So,
and as an attorney, you understand better than anyone else the punitive measures built into contracts for failure to perform.
Yeah, and what makes it's going to make it even worse because we're getting a lot of grants from the federal government. The federal government's supposed to pay a lot of this back, and the state to try to help build that airport. Well, if you just say, "Oh, we're not going to do it," you'll be on the hook for the contract, and you won't get the grants. Yeah. So that's going to make everything a lot worse down the road for the city. On the other token of why is this such a big issue of what's going on is the biggest problem with the airport. Why people have an issue with it is there's been an economic vision for McKinney. And that economic vision benefits certain individuals and families in the city. And it continues to do that. And most people in McKinney know that. And it's starting to make people upset that continues to happen. I don't think necessarily if you were to go back and explain everything and allow McKinney voters to vote, maybe they would want to expand the airport because they would see it as things. But when you continually see large corporations, certain developments, the money coming out of people who are really struggling, and they're paying their taxes, and then it's going to these individuals and they're profiting from it, it's causing a serious problem within the city, and people are getting very upset. So part of, I know they want to say the whole reason was the bond of why people rejected the airport, but that's not the case. Most people, when you talk to them in McKinney, are tired of seeing this, where they're paying for for-profit projects. Mm-hmm. And the airport kind of just became the symbol of it. That was the thing that people could see. It's very obvious. Okay, here's another thing that we're doing, where it is. On top of that, I think it's being pushed by the wrong design, meaning the benefit of the airport is Collin County. If the financial benefit, I think it's $300 million a year of
roughly,
economic, but most of that is not here in McKinney.
It's indirect.
Yeah, it's going to be all over. It's going to be Allen. It's going to be Plano. All the other places are financially benefiting too. So putting McKinney taxpayers on the hook for the whole county is not the approach that should be done with this. It should be, hey, if Collin County, you guys want to do this with McKinney, fine. Let's look at it. But you have to ask the voters if this is really what they want to do to move forward with the money. But the bigger issue is the trust problem. It's happening at all levels of the government right now.
Yeah.
You see it at the federal level, all this that's coming out, all this fraud and waste and abuse that's being done. And of course, McKinney is way less percentage-wise. But there's always going to be waste. There's always going to be deals that people are getting money to themselves through the government. That's always been the problem with government. McKinney does a really good job limiting it. But right now, you're telling people who are watching the news every night about a new program that's being abused. And then at least I've gotten a lot of this online. They're saying, well, of course, there's criminal stuff happening here in McKinney too. And I said, well, okay, if there is, I need to see evidence of it.
Yeah.
But there's this assumption now that there is. And it's like, that's the biggest problem right now with the airport and the symbol is it is the trust people have in their government institutions. It's fading so much.
I don't disagree. I think there's a lot of perception that people aren't listening, and just a general casual sense that, the 7 people on council aren't listening. And I think that they recognize that, the 7 people that are currently on council, and obviously, 3 of those people are different. After it's probably not going to be May 3rd. It's probably going to be sometime in early June when that's all settled. I don't see any way that either the mayor race or at-large one. There's no way it's not going to be a runoff. Yeah, it's statistically almost impossible to avoid a runoff because you've got 4 compelling candidates for different reasons. We were talking about this with Taha Ansari before you came in. It's like, this is not a situation in the mayor's race or at-large one where clearly one candidate is qualified, has the experience, the disposition, the background should be an obvious choice. The mayor race is not an obvious choice. You've got a 30-year commercial real estate broker who's been in just about every volunteer capacity one can be in Bill Cox. Really strong candidate. You've got a guy who served in Austin for 11 years. He's a CPA. He's been an executive pastor and administrator of a large church. Scott Sanford's a really strong candidate. You've got an accomplished attorney. You've got someone who has experience leading a team and running a business and dealing with constituents, aka customers and clients. Taylor Willingham's a really strong candidate. You've got Dr. Matt Rastami, a surgeon, someone who went to medical school and graduated. He is a brilliant surgeon. I can't operate in someoone else's eyes. Yeah. Now, is Matt a maverick? Is he unpredictable? Well, yeah, of the four, Matt probably comes off as maybe the one who stands out in not the best way compared to the others. But even Matt himself is a great candidate.
Yeah, he's very Trump-esque in the sense of he will get out there and say what people are feeling.
Yeah. It's how do you navigate as a candidate in a race with four compelling, strong candidates for different reasons? Like all four of you guys, Bill, Scott, Taylor, and Matt, you all have your camps. You all have your supporters. Every one of you guys has a legitimate chance to win this thing. Even Dr. Rastami, who a lot of people are writing off. I myself wrote him off at the beginning as not a serious candidate. But some of the stuff he's put out, like his video on the ETJ, was like, oh, that's actually really good, man. It was like, how do you get people to see Taylor Willingham is the best choice in your opinion?
Yeah, so I actually want to go through each one of them and like their good and positives about
Go for
them.
it.
And
Yeah,
like,
please.
So I look at Bill as like he represents like the head of McKinney. He knows McKinney backwards and forwards. He's been here his whole life. He's a good guy to the core of it. Every time I meet him, he's just a good person, wants what's best for McKinney. And he has the kind of the family and everything that represents McKinney.
Yeah.
And then you have Scott, which is just a great human being through and through. If you met Scott, he's just, you can just feel it when you meet him.
He's one of the calmest, most even-keeled person, almost a little bit weird sometimes. Like, do you ever show emotion?
Yeah.
Like any emotion?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like but Bill and Scott both, they're just right here.
Yeah.
They don't go too far up or down in any direction. Either one of them.
Yeah, he reminds me of Mr. Rogers. That's what Scott reminds me of. It's like, just good person. Just through and through. He's like the heart of McKinney, like a great representation of like the soul kind of the thing. And then I think of Matt like the gut of McKinney, just like the workforce, the people who are out there digging, and they're kind of upset because they're tired of being used.
Yeah.
And he just gets out there and he says, hey, this is what's going on. We're tired of this. We're tired of all this stuff that you guys are doing. Leave us alone. We just want to be left alone.
I feel like Matt's message is the most visceral and just right to the chase.
Yeah.
Of
It's raw.
all of you guys. It's
raw.
It's unfiltered. Sometimes it's hard to watch, but it's always interesting.
Well, it's like, the gut represents the part of your body that has to do all the work.
Yeah.
And those people are pissed. I mean, they go to work, they do their jobs, and then all of a sudden they're asked to pay these taxes, and then they see it going off to some, like some corporation that's moving in. It's like, they're tired of it. So in a very real sense, like, I'm like, I'm not into things to lose. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could get fourth place in this thing because you got all these camps in their groups. And then I view myself more like kind of the nervous system kind of, I know McKinney, I know everybody along up from the head to the heart to I talk to all the individuals that are in between. And I've kind of been that person through my whole time being here in McKinney, is I know what's going on. And the thing that gives me the different perspective is I have to, running my business, I've had to transform because of the changes so many times. I've been through the 2008 crash. That's how I had to start it. And I had to think outside the box and figure out how to run a business in a totally different world. Also at that time, law really hadn't figured out. When I would talk to attorneys when I first moved in, like, how are you getting business? You just moved into the city. Like, oh, I just use Google. They're like, you don't use the yellow pages? I'll be like, no, the yellow pages are way that because that's what they were used to. That's what they thought that was going to be the future. And then we went through a huge process of growth in McKinney and all this change. And then COVID hits.
Yeah.
Well, I had to totally reinvent at that moment how I did everything and how we approached our situations and functioning. And then now in the last 2 years, it's this AI revolution. And I've already had to spend the last year and a half reinventing my business and keeping up with what's changing, what's going on in that, plus this hyperinflation scenario of like, hey, I have currently 20 employees. Well, I have to deal with the fact that they got to pay their bills.
Yeah.
And people don't want sticker shock when they walk in my office of going, gosh, I just had to pay my mechanic $1,000. Now you're wanting $1,000. Like, I have to work with people and try to figure all that out. And so it's this natural ability that I've always had to be able to see a problem when it's coming and then be able to change everything and deal with it. So that's why I view myself as the best person running right now for mayor, because I can lead the city. Hey, this is the changes we have to make in order to cause the least amount of pain for the citizens when this transformation really kicks in.
Can I ask a direct question? Are you okay with that?
Hit him with it.
Yeah. The polling that I've seen, you've probably seen similar polling, just about every poll is indicating it's probably going to be a runoff between Bill and Scott. You and Matt both are noticeably behind both Bill and Scott. How do you position yourself as we're, what's today? We're less than a week away. We're like 5 days away from early voting. How do you position yourself as a better choice than Bill Cox and a better choice than Scott Sanford? I'm going to leave Matt out of it. I don't have any disrespect for him at all. But I mean, specifically with regards to polling, at this point, how do you tell people, folks, Taylor's a better choice than Bill for this reason or these reasons? Taylor's a better choice than Scott for this reason or these reasons. What's your answer to that?
What we did in the past, the way that we have been acting, the way that we've been handling our city is completely going to change. And it is not even going to be close to things. If people understood the opportunity that we have right now, it is possible within the next 10 years to have tax-free cities. I know that's really, like, in people's minds are like, there's no way. No, absolutely they are. With AI and robotics, we can drive down the cost for producing and providing service to almost zero. And that ability of being able to take a city and go, we can completely transform our lives into a very much better situation. It is going to be painful. It is something we have to go through. In the short term, there's going to be a lot of change that's going to happen. But guiding people through that change and knowing how to do those things is going to be key. And I think you need somebody that is a business owner that knows what's going on in the world and also is heavily invested in knowing how technology is changing that world and guiding through that. Because if, like, my wife keeps saying this to me, she goes, if you really think half of all white collar jobs are going to be gone in the next 4 years, or not that they're not going to be, that they're just going to be changed in what people are doing. She goes, people are going to be really mad and upset.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah. She goes, why would you want to be mayor? That sounds like the worst thing that you want to do.
That sounds like something my wife would say.
Yeah, it's like that is like,
what are you doing to our family?
Exactly.
You are bringing us into insanity.
And so whoever of the four of us wins this, I believe very heavily 2 or 3 years in, it's going to wish they did not win, because it is going to be very difficult. Because you guys see online what happens.
Yeah.
It's people want to blame somebody, and it's easy to blame politicians, and they're going to look at, if the city is now pulling in half the revenue that it was pulling in, a couple years before, and you're cutting programs.
Let me push back on that a little bit and get your response, because you talk about robotics and AI, those two things, a tax-free city. When I look at the top 5 expenditures for the city, police, fire, infrastructure, which includes public works, water, sewer, etc. And then you've got just city governance, roads. We can't build roads with robots and AI. You can't have parks and rec, green space with robots and AI. How do we handle those things in the context of innovation, AI, robotics, and whatnot? Because I don't disagree with you at all. I think that these things we've talked about before in this episode are absolutely going to be a generational disruptor, that a lot of things are going to be forever changed. I have struggled seeing things from a municipal facilitation perspective, the nuts and bolts of running a city and delivering essential services to the citizens. I have a hard time seeing what you see. Help me understand.
All right. So you take concepts like, robotics and AI right now, of course, can't do these things. But you're talking about exponential curves of abilities. Pretty much, if AI achieves the level that they're projecting within the next couple of years, if you give it a robotic body, it can do anything a human can do, but better. And that's a hard thing for people to really think that through or even see.
Okay, so you're thinking in terms of humanoid androids that are facilitating what currently humans are, like going out to fix a broken water main.
You can use that, yes.
Having android police officers, android firefighters.
That probably won't fly. But I don't think people necessarily now.
That's like a 20 or 30 year thing. It's not a
maybe
5 or 10 year thing.
I mean, Elon said this year they will deploy, their goal is 10,000 Optimus robots to be deployed this year. And he's just one company. And then next year it's 100,000. And then
so at what point does Skynet take over and we live inside the Terminator?
That's a completely different question. And I have no way to answer that. And I know this sounds scary, or like people always, well, in the past, when we were kids, if you watched, Back to the Future, people were on flying in our day, skateboards and cars and stuff. It's like, where's all that?
That was
stuff?
2015.
Yes,
allegedly. That was a decade ago. Where's my flying skateboard, Fred?
Exactly.
Yeah, where's my Mr. Fusion powered DeLorean?
And so when people start talking about this, it sounds like, this can't. And the problem is what we're talking about exists currently. It hasn't been mass produced yet. It's on its way. So it's not like this is a new technology that needs to be invented. It's a technology that is being deployed right now into the world. And a lot of the stuff that you're seeing, you just don't really realize that's going on. For example, my own business, we're not trying to lay our employees off, but when they leave, I haven't been replacing them because I hadn't need to. Like, for example, I used to require 3 paralegals to help me to keep things functioning. I don't have any now.
Really? You don't have any paralegals?
For me. And so
he's got ChatGPT.
Exactly.
So you're not even paying someone $10 an hour.
There's a legal version of ChatGPT, right? That's in a siloed server that's sandboxed out.
Yeah, but we don't use that for like drafting and doing different things like that. But but I don't need for like templates that I used to have. Like, can you create me a template? Can you do this research for me? Can you figure this thing out? It can instantaneously be done for you.
Yeah.
And so people aren't seeing those kind of changes happening because large corporations are because 10,000 people a day are retiring in the United States. It's one of our biggest. Where you're seeing the biggest issue right now is in the trades.
Yeah.
Because there are not robots out there to do things. I mean, ChatGPT exists, and OpenAI and Claude.
It's going to be a generation before we have trade-capable robots.
I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to take them to manufacture these things.
Yeah.
And really, that's the question is how long before that comes out.
We're about out of time. How do you want to end the episode? We got call to action. Fred, do you have any things here? I hesitate to just abruptly shut things off. I just know that you and I both have stuff we got to do next.
Yeah. So, going back to the automation /AI /robotics and how you see our city changing because of those things, there are a lot of people. Now, I mean, you opened up with the fact that you are homeless, and we already have a homeless situation here in McKinney and in Collin County. Knowing that there are people who potentially will be losing their jobs to automation, and you've already said, you might be the guy, steering the mayoral ship at that point. Why would people even want to come to McKinney?
Great question.
And we're going to be, we're McKinney unique by nature, or we become McKinney AI unique by nature. Why would people even want to come here?
Homeless by nature.
Yeah. Well, the reality is this area develops based upon, white collar jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if those are going to be displaced and people can't get those jobs, people aren't going to be coming. And so that might be a situation that McKinney has to realize that, hey, we've enjoyed just being associated with this area, this growth. And people are complaining and saying, oh, well, it's going to be a completely different situation if there is the opposite that happens in the area because these jobs go away or dry up. Because this is not home to almost everybody that lives in the DFW area. They're from somewhere else. A lot of these people will go back if there isn't jobs here for them. They will go back to where they grew up or different things like that. So it is one of these big concerns that we might see this complete change in the area because of that transformation. I've put it out like to explain the solutions for all of our problems don't currently exist because we don't know exactly what all the problems are going to be. We know it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and people go, well, the government will stop it. Well, if the government comes out and stops it, China will do it. And then we're in a completely different problem. They can't stop it. We're going to have to walk through it together. But as the thing goes, I have to be honest with people. I will probably be without a job or be having to do something completely different than I do currently in the next 4 years. And so it's like it's not like I'm immune to this reality. You know, you don't become mayor and make money. It's
you don't?
Yeah.
I thought the mayors, I thought that was like
$100 a month.
I thought that was like a blank check to, the Porsche dealership,
You can
right?
ask George. and Brian Loftmiller's an attorney, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you can ask George. Him being mayor for the last 8 years has cost him in personal income hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the amount of hours that he has spent being mayor and not tending to his business. That's the part that makes these folks that like to hate George and say that George is corrupt and that he's personally benefiting. I'm just like, I don't think you understand how much work goes into being mayor.
Oh yeah, it's not.
George has not made 1 cent
Yeah.
off of being mayor. He's lost a lot of money.
And he probably could have got deals if he wasn't the mayor.
Because he has to recuse himself or be aware of conflict of interest issues. Because the people that are accusing the sitting mayor of these things, like, you do realize that is a crime, like an actual crime. Like, you go to jail if you do some of the things that people have accused George of doing.
Yeah. And
It's like, no mayor is going to do that.
Yeah.
If Taylor's mayor, Taylor won't even consider doing that because of the consequences.
yeah, it was my law license.
Yeah.
That was my whole way of making it. But the reality of the situation, I'm in the boat with everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't have a way that I can, deflect what's about to happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I have to be in there and deal with it and go with the changes as I go. But at the same time, it's like, I know a lot of this stuff is really scary to people. And like a lot of people tell me, just don't talk about it.
Oh, that'll make it go away.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like,
That's a great solution.
but I'm trying to get out there. It's like, I'm not running for mayor so Taylor Willingham could be mayor. I'm running for mayor because I'm genuinely concerned that this is the path we're heading towards.
Yeah.
And unless some significant change happens in something in the economy or something, this is going to be developed. I mean, they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars to do this. They're not going to turn off this direction. And so we as a city have a choice. We can sit back and wait and see what happens, or we can be as proactive as we can in helping people get through this next 4 to 8 years and go that direction. And I'm for that direction.
Man, it's just like the ending of the original Terminator movie when Sarah Connor says, "The storm is coming."
Man, that just scared me.
But you can handle it. But you can handle it. I love that though. And you do bring a unique perspective to this.
Well, Fred, I'm going to go ahead and let you ask the question.
That's right, since you already know. Okay, Taylor, you are trained in jiu-jitsu, but who would win in a fight between a polar bear and a great white shark in a body of water 6 feet deep of infinite width? There is no shoreline, there is no edge, there is no Marco Polo fish out of water.
And neither the bear nor the shark know jiu-jitsu, by the way. It's only what they came into the world with.
That's right.
Now, where are they?
In a body of water.
Okay.
You pick your planet, but a body of water.
It is, the water temperature is 55 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
The polar bear is perfectly comfortable. Great white shark is perfectly comfortable.
Okay.
He's the first person to ask a more clarifying question here.
Yeah.
But he's an attorney, though, so.
So, okay. So
Great white is a warm water shark, by the way.
So, and this.
But well insulated.
Yes.
And so in this situation, this is happening where the polar bear is like at the top of the water, not down deep in the water, right?
Yeah, it's only 6 feet
6
deep.
feet
The polar
deep.
bear is 12 feet tall, by the way. So the polar bear is able to stand up and use his front paws.
Okay. And so, and how big's the great white shark?
Standard size, probably 18 feet long, somewhere around there.
6 feet deep?
Yes. He's, you know,
The shark can't come up from underneath.
Okay.
but he's larger than the willing hammerhead.
Head.
Head. That's it.
Willing hammer head.
That's right.
It's going to be the polar bear. It's going to win.
Really?
Yeah. I think
How do you get there?
I get there because I don't think the shark can move. Attacks from coming up and shooting up. That's how it usually attacks.
That's how sharks like to attack. That is why I think so as well. Fred, after a year of doing this, is still team shark, and I'm team polar bear.
Yeah.
So
I just don't think if you were in the ocean, great white. It'd
All
fly
day
up.
long.
It'd come up and just fly that thing out of the sky.
yeah, Shredsville.
Fredsville.
Shredsville. Okay. Man, this has been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah.
I had no idea we were going to spend 20
Took a
minutes
turn, like.
talking
Yeah.
about AI.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
All
man.
right. So, yeah. Tech guys. Usually when I get tech guys, they're all excited about it.
This is something that is very real for us at RiskWell. AI hasn't figured out how to take a headshot yet, so Fred doesn't have to deal with this.
Well,
quite the
actually,
same way.
thankfully, there was a season where the AI headshot was a very trending thing.
Yeah.
Boo.
But what people noticed was that AI could not capture, in essence, I say the soul of the subject.
The sparkle of the eye,
Yeah, it would-
the
it would-
face-
yeah.
like the quiver of the chin or the little
And-
smirk on the edge of
Yeah.
the mouth.
And even as good as AI is right now, there is something that is very synthetic or disconnected about it. And I've surveyed, I was truly concerned for my own job like a year ago. I was like, man, this is not going to turn out well for Freddie Boy. But, there are people that need for human connection.
Yeah.
Cannot be synthesized through any of those things, no matter how good the app, because ultimately people say, you know what, that is too perfect. That is too perfect, and people don't want that. So yes, the AI is out there, but right now there are a lot of people who use it to their advantage to speed through their workflow.
Yeah.
It's very efficient.
Yeah.
But in terms of synthesizing it, people don't like it.
We got to run. I'm going to look right at the camera when I say this. Early voting starts on Tuesday, April 22nd. This episode drops this coming Monday, the day before early voting. If you're voting for Taylor, if you're voting for one of these other guys, get your butt to the polls. You can vote anywhere, any precinct in early voting. If you're waiting until voting day, you have to vote in your precinct. Early voting is way easier. You can vote at literally any one of these locations all across. We will make sure that our show description has the locations of all the early voting spots around town. And get out and vote, folks. Whether you vote Taylor or vote somebody else, make sure your voice and vote just came together as voit. Make sure your voice is heard. And that's it for this episode. Thank you, Taylor Willingham, the Willinghammer, for being here.
Head.
Yeah.
Willinghammer head.